I'd like to introduce our guest for today is Nancy Hurrell, a harp historian and harp consultant to the Boston Museum of Fine Arts since 2002. Nancy Hurrell has published many articles on the harp and a new book, the definitive biography on 19th century Irish harp maker John Egan. The book is called The Egan Irish Harps, Tradition, Patrons, and Players. And I'm sure Nancy would love to talk about it, but you're just going to have to go and buy it because it's a great book. She has taught at Boston Conservatory, Brandeis University, Benslow Music in England, and thousands of festivals. With academic degrees in harp performance and fine art, Nancy presents lecture demonstrations on rare harps in museum collections. A really fun job, I'm sure. She recently performed a gallery recital in the MFA's exhibition Casanova's Europe. She was guest curator at the Museum of Making Music in California and at the John J. Burns Library, Boston College in 2010. And best thing, in Ireland, Lord and Lady Ross invited Nancy Hurrell to present a lecture and a concert on the family's 1821 Irish harp at Birr Castle in 2012. Please welcome Nancy Hurrell.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Amy. Yes, I lead a charmed life for a harp historian, I must say. I've had some really wonderful experiences.
You do, yeah. This all sounds wonderful and amazing.
Thank you.
And I'm envious.
Thank you.
So what are one or two things about this program that excited you?
I love the variety of the repertoire. Each piece was written in a completely different style. And it was also exciting to me to have harp parts written for me. I love the chance of using this harp as well, which fit both the repertoire and the troubadour theme. And this is the type of harp that was played from the 1400s to around 1700. And this is a Northern European single row harp, a very slender sound box, but it has a big sound.
Sound box, is this?
Yes, this is a sound box, but it has a fabulous sound.
Yeah.
And this harp was made for me by Catherine Campbell. She calls it her Boston harp. And that's because this is a replica of a harp in the Boston Museum of Fine Arts. If you go into the musical instruments gallery, you'll see the original of this instrument hung up on the wall.
Oh, how cool.
And as you said, in the before time, I was a harp consultant there at the MFA, and I gave gallery talks on the original instrument, and then I played my harp for the demos in the gallery talks.
Oh, okay. Okay, those harps are not playable.
They're not playable, no.
Yeah.
That particular one is not, yes.
So is there any unique historical or musical aspect of the program that you suddenly became aware of or that changed you in any way?
The poetry itself, the troubadour poetry, was such a surprise to me. And such a range of emotions in the poetry, starting with your wonderful piece, Na Carenza, the humor and the earthiness in this piece. The words are just a story in itself. And I love the way you made sound pictures out of the words. And in the harp part, when she says, shall I remain unwed or shall I become wed? And she's posing this question. And so on the harp part, we have a question motive. That is so much a question in my mind. And then she comes to this part where she says, well, to be wed, though, would be so anguishing. And here we are on the harp with anguish. So I love that, the way you translated the words into musical sounds, especially on the harp part.
Thank you.
And it was the same really on the other pieces as well. In the Van Ness piece, for instance, there was such longing in that piece with this, she talks about grief and dying, and the harp plays. And as I was learning that in quarantine, it was so freeing to play a melody line like that and just pour out all your feelings in a line like that. Mm-hmm. That in a way was so much grief and loss in this last year, and I could feel it in the music.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did it feel to play jazz?
I loved that piece, Tall's piece, and it was so fun to meet her, wasn't it?
It was.
For that piece, I was not actually given a harp part as such. All I had was a chord chart. I was playing a modern harp, and I never even wrote down my part. It was all improvisatory. I had a chord chart, a plan, and I was just ready and open to whatever happened in the rehearsals. And we pretty much honed it down to a vision. Lisa was fantastic to work with, and she had a vision of the different verses on that piece. And so working with her, this is why playing live with musicians and singers is so important. Because in the rehearsal, we made decisions about the pace of the music, the dynamics, what we wanted to say, and I sort of knew what I wanted to do, but then in the moment, when we're actually doing it and recording it, there were these happy accidents that occurred as we're collaborating with the other instruments. And I'm very comfortable with doing that because I perform on modern harps as well. So it was just really cool to play a contemporary piece with Cappella Clausura this time.
Right, it was cool. One of the reasons I love making early music and live is because you're listening to somebody and they play a little motif, da 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 da, and then you play that motif, or I sing that motif, or a singer sings that motif, or Nama plays it on her flute, and it's all about that relationship that you're listening constantly to the other musicians, and you're just
it's
working
a conversation.
It's a conversation
in the
exactly.
moment.
It's wonderful.
I was thinking about this. Really, music is about time. It's about expression in the moment. It's not all there on the musical page, on those notes.
Yeah.
It's you take from that your plan, but in the moment, you pick up the reason for this music, and the timing and the expression, and it has to be done live with other people.
With
really,
other people.
Doesn't it?
Yes, it really does. So we come to my last question, which is, how did it feel to finally play live?
It was fantastic. As we were saying, things happened in rehearsal. For instance, Elena's piece, she added these G sharps
right.
in rehearsal, and that was such a beautiful thing. When we were actually recording that part, and I was just playing that driving beat, it felt like a pulse. It occurred to me that this is the heartbeat of humanity, and it fit how I felt about this piece, this wonderful tribute to her mother. And then it fades away, and then at the end we come to this beautiful texture. To get to play that, some kind of crowning glory on that piece, to fill it out at the end, it was a very spine-tingling moment.
Absolutely.
But I have to say, I was really looking forward to doing this. And when I first was around the people, I've been on Zoom for a year with colleagues and harpists and friends, but I felt a little anxious and awkward.
Yep.
So I felt socially awkward, and I thought, what's going on here? What is wrong with me? And I think one of the things was, I I express myself with my whole face. I like to smile at people when I recognize them. Sometimes I like to say something a little bit sarcastic or make a joke, and I smile and you get my meaning. And without that part of my face, I felt handicapped and awkward. I don't know if that happened to you,
Absolutely.
Amy.
I think we all sort of went inward because of that, because we couldn't express ourselves. So, and I noticed this when I meet people on the street, or when I met people, thank God that's a past tense, when I met people on the street, and we would not even look at each other, because it felt dangerous somehow.
Yes.
Yes. Because I don't know what you're thinking, you don't know what I'm thinking, we don't know each other. We can't read each other at all.
Yes.
So.
And the effect of being part of this concert recording, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I got over my social anxiety and loved being with everyone, and I feel different now. Already I feel totally different now, and I'm now going to be playing in other settings.
Yay!
And yes, and I feel like I'm back.
Yeah,
It's just such a good feeling.
I have a quick question before we run out of time. You said you play a modern harp, so that's not the great big thing you see in the orchestra, right?
I play that as well.
You do?
Yes.
But when you played the modern harp in our concert, what was that harp?
That is a modern lever harp.
Okay.
So it has levers instead of pedals, and it's also called a Celtic harp.
Right.
But as we were playing modern instruments, it was a contemporary piece, and I had, you'll see in the video, I'm flicking
flipping the things,
levers, and that's a chromatic harp. Whereas on this instrument, the historical technique is to actually just
Put your
pinch
finger.
a string. On a modern harp, they developed levers, and you'll see when we change keys, my hand goes up and I put.
So that means that the string, and this is for those of you who don't know this, that means that the string can go up a half step or down.
Yes.
Up only? Up a half
Well,
step.
you use
You can't go
inharmonic tuning, so if
Yeah.
you need a B flat, you fret the A to make an A sharp.
Right.
So there are ways to get your chromatics.
Yeah.
And then the levers were invented, and then the pedal harp, which I'm going to be playing tomorrow in a wedding, you use your
use your
pedals
feet, right.
to get your accidentals.
the
But that's always the problem with a harp,
Mm-hmm.
is to try and get. I also have harps with multiple rows, so I have like white notes and black notes, and I've played those types of harps with Cappella as well.
So why are there colors on the strings?
This, my C's are red and my F's are black. So that's how we know. You sort of look at the strings, but you sort of just see the color out of the corner of your eye because you're looking at the music or
Right.
the director, and that's your guide
Yeah.
on the harp.
That's great. I know we had an issue because we had a red rug to deal with, and the red strings were just gone.
Yeah, most of the time it doesn't bother me. It depends on the setting.
Yeah.
But in that beautiful sanctuary
Gorgeous.
with the red, wonderful, bright red rug in the center, my C strings totally disappeared, and the sound crew very kindly found me a dark rug. So I lost my F's a little bit, but I was able to carry on.
Yeah. And stay calm.
Yeah,
Carry
keep
on.
calm and carry on.
Keep calm and carry on. Well, thank you, Nancy, for coming to my house to talk about this wonderful instrument, bringing the instrument to talk about the whole project. It was really fun for all
It
of
was.
us.
Thank you so much,
Great.
Amy, for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thanks.